Ingram, and this is the Ingram Angle. We have a ton of news to bring to you tonight. And of course, we're all waiting on the imminent release of that controversial FISA memo. Democrats are trying like mad to stop it, but we hear President Trump has already given it the green light. Also, a follow-up to last night's heart-wrenching interview with the parents of a young girl brutally murdered by MS13 gang members. Tonight, we'll speak with two more parents who suffered the same tragedy on the same day. And they were also consoled by President Trump. Plus, Mad Maxine Waters is responding to the State of the Union. Isn't she a little late? With parental warning. We'll explain. And Hollywood crosses a line with a show depicting, get this, the violent rape of a conservative pundit who is kind of a dead ringer for Ann Coulter. Ann herself will be here to respond. But first, Democrats define victimhood down. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Everywhere you turn, the Democrats and their fawning media enablers are elevating the concerns of non-Americans over actual Americans. Now, last night, as I said, I interviewed the parents of 15-year-old Nissa Mickens, who was murdered by illegal alien MS13 gang members. They were President Trump's guests at Tuesday's State of the Union. I asked them what they thought about the Democrats' failure to stand when they were recognized.
I felt it was very disrespectful. For the simple fact, the Democrats who was there who did not stand up, they were African Americans. They did not have the respect or to honor what just happened to our lives and to America's lives. Regardless of how they feel about the president, they should show the respect, because I would show them the respect if that was their loved one.
So classy and so moving. President Trump was right to address the brutality of these Salvadoran gangs victimizing law-abiding, innocent Americans. And he also highlighted the otherwise forgotten victims among them. Of course, all liberal media types could do in response to all this was just dismiss it as just, oh, come on, MS-13, that threat's kind of overblown. It's political hype. Nissa's mom reacted to that sentiment with incredulity.
I have no words. I mean, these are gang members that just, decided to be a judge and a jury to take my daughter out like that. It's unacceptable. I don't want it to happen to anybody else's family.
It was so heartbreaking. Yet, for most Democrats, these victims and their families, they're almost invisible. The anguish of those families is really inconvenient to the storyline that a lot of people on the left like to tell. That illegal immigrants are all good and they're all deserving of amnesty, benefits, care, compassion, etc. Liberals' empathy, though, only seems to go one way.
The awful, awful, awful pictures of dreamers being deported, I think, will rally the nation.
For me, the first step begins by finally addressing the needs of dreamers. It's a priority that too long has been pushed to the back burner.
We heard more insulting words of ignorance and prejudice toward patriotic immigrant families last night.
Yeah, because those American families, they're not patriotic at all, Nancy. Oh, and by the way, raise your hand if you're weary of the endless immigration sob stories trotted out by media coast to coast.
A crowd of rabbis, priests, pastors, and immigration organizations sing and pray for Luis Blanco. On the outside, you wouldn't know this may be the last time he'll see his family on American soil.
Honestly, I didn't sleep well. It's a very difficult day. It's a day where a big decision will be made, and I'm not sure how it's going to end.
Blanco has called Plant City home for 2 decades. Back in 1998, he was deported. And the next year, he came back illegally to find work. Blanco has 6 American-born children and a 7th on the way.
So you heard that. First of all, Blanco is here 20 years, does not speak English, was deported once, only to come back again illegally. And his 30-year-old wife is a DACA recipient, by the way. Now, contrary to what Democrats have tried to do, to brainwash generations of African Americans to believe that Republicans are racist, terrible, heartless people. They've done the same with Hispanics as well. Think about this. It's only Donald Trump who had the guts to point out that an unenforced border hits black, Hispanic, and working poor generally disproportionately hard, lowering wages, shutting a lot of people out of entire job sectors, and, of course, the crime. So playing the crass game of identity politics, what Democrats do is they create their own classes of imaginary victims. So illegal immigrants' anxiety about deportation, as you just saw in that piece, is covered endlessly and with maximum emotion. Lots of sympathetic nods from reporters. And politicians stand and applaud for so-called dreamers demanding rights. And if you disagree and you believe in immigration measures that are designed to benefit the American people, well, you're smeared.
Values. You have very hostile anti-immigrant voices in the House.
Last week, President Trump and DHS Secretary Nielsen made another shameful anti-immigrant decision by ending temporary protected status for 31,000 Salvadoran.
We have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House. All three are the most anti-immigration that there is.
Now, that's completely absurd, Chuck, and I'm going to throw it right back in his face. I'll ask him this. Are Democrats anti-children when they fail to stand up for victims, such as the 7-year-old Indiana girl who was repeatedly raped this month by a 24-year-old illegal alien? And by the way, if we have the picture of him, there he is. And was this animal a dreamer? That's my question. Well, no, most illegal immigrants don't commit serious violent crimes. We all know that. But they do comprise 22% of our federal prison population. That is a fact. And by the way, a new study of Arizona residents by economist John Lott finds that illegal immigrants are 142% more likely to be convicted of a crime than other Arizonans. Wow, that is obscene. Now, today, we have a thing called a catch and release policy. It's completely nuts, under which ICE agents must release unaccompanied and accompanied alien children back into the country. So they're caught at the border, and then they're processed quickly and released back into the United States. Health and Human Services then resettles these kids in communities and in states like yours. We've released 100,000 of these unaccompanied minors into the United States just since fiscal year 2016. It's unbelievable. And a recent HHS study showed that the majority of unaccompanied illegal alien minors are 15 to 17 years old, and they're males. In other words, as that Northern Virginia Gang Task Force fellow a couple weeks ago on this show said, they are prime recruitment targets for MS13. President Trump, to his credit and to our benefit, wants to end this scourge.
Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Tonight I am calling on Congress to finally close the deadly loopholes that have allowed MS13 and other criminal gangs to break into our country.
I was thinking about this. The Congressional Black Caucus and all those Democrats who sat fuming rather than standing in support of grieving American families Tuesday night, I say shame on you. You've gone so far left that you've left America. And that's the angle. Last night, it was my great privilege to speak with Robert Mickens and Elizabeth Alvarado, whose 15-year-old daughter, Nisa Mickens, was murdered by MS13 gang members. They were guests, as I said, of President Trump at Tuesday's State of the Union address, as were my next guests, Evelyn Rodriguez and Freddie Cuevas. They are the parents of Kayla Cuevas, a 16-year-old who was also killed by MS13 gang members. And both of you, I want to say, I know it's very difficult to come out and talk about this subject because it makes you think of what happened to your daughter. just 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago. But we really appreciate your testimony and your witness to what is the truth. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Evelyn, I'd like to start with you. You've heard the sentiment expressed time and again that the President Trump is making too much of this MS-13 issue, that it's being used for just political purposes, and people didn't even know about MS-13 unless it was for Fox News, kind of dismissing it. What's your reaction to that?
You know, it's a situation that it's pretty much all over, and we need to find a solution in order to take care of this. It is a serious problem, and I just don't want another family to go through the pain that we've been enduring every day since this happened.
Freddie, for our viewers who don't know the brutality of MS-13, tell us what happened to Kayla.
Unfortunately, that sad day, Kayla was announced by Nisa and, you know, her best friend, you know, to go into seeing a friend and whatnot. So they went over to see a friend so they can tackle whatever situation they had, which was very minor. And they went over there, they made their friendship, they made their peace. On the way back, that's when I think
the situation
occurred. Things went wrong. They was already in the parking lot, and they was, you know, hanging out there in the parking lot, whatnot. And unfortunately, my daughter and Nisa, on that specific day, happened to be crossing the boundaries of Loretta Park. So once they crossed Loretta Park and being them parked in Loretta Park, they happened to come across the controversy.
Well, the motto of MS-13 is kill, rape, and control. And Evelyn, I have a daughter who's 12 and a half years old, and my heart breaks for you to have read what they did to her. But they beat both girls with a baseball bat, and police who found them said they had not ever seen such brutality. They've seen a lot in Long Island, never seen anything like it. You were there at the State of the Union, and there were a lot of people who stood and applauded for your courage and for your daughter. There were a lot of people who sat on their hands scowling. What do you say to them tonight, those who would not stand to honor your daughter?
You know, everybody has their opinions. I just want to thank for those who stood up and believed in what we're trying to do. You know, I don't know what they were thinking. I know as a parent, I'm feeling the loss of my daughter. I feel it every day. There's not a day, a second that I don't think about my daughter. And they just don't understand the pain of a parent losing their child to this gang violence. And I hope they never will. It's something that you don't think about. You know, our kids should be burying us when we're ready to go, not the parents burying their kids. Their lives are ahead of them. You know, I just want the government to really think about the choices and the solutions and the plans that they have in order to take care of this problem. It's a serious problem. They need to really consider it. I know there's other issues here in the U.S., but this is one issue that they need to tackle on.
Well, I think there's a lot of empathy expressed on a daily basis for people who are in the country illegally who fear deportation, and I'm sure, you know, that's a legitimate fear. What we want to do on this show is showcase those who are forgotten. And until President Trump came along, I think they were largely ignored or invisible victims. But we think the empathy should go to American citizens who are brutally hurt and harmed and killed by people who should never have been in this country in the first place. And that's what we're going to do every night. And we just salute you for coming on. And I know how hard it is. You're not a political person, but I think we need solutions that
I just
ensure
want
that
things to be,
none of this happens again.
I'm sorry.
No,
Right.
this can't keep happening.
I just want to make sure. No,
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
You know, I just want the resources and the programs and the funding to come into our community and the schools. And like I said, this is not just happening here in Suffolk County. It's happening all over.
40 states. There are
So we have to
10,000 members of MS13 all across the United States. Evelyn, Freddie, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us thank you.
Well, thank you for having us as well.
And God bless you.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you,
You too.
likewise as well.
And now we go to someone who sees nothing wrong with amnesty and very liberal immigration policies. We see him from New York. David Burstein is the co-founder of Run for America.